Rolling, Mel?
Yes.
So this is a presentation that we probably should have done quite a long time ago, but it's kind of on the fringes because it's not specific, you know, how do you build your Amazon business, how do you do that, how do you do that. It's just more about mindset. But it's something that I think is super, super, super important, and it's about the 13 ingredients to having a millionaire mindset. And millionaire is just interchangeable with super successful. So if you feel like you're not doing it for the money, or you're not motivated by being a millionaire, that's fine. Everything we're talking about here, you can just interchange with super successful, because these are the habits that people who are super successful in anything in life pretty much all seem to have. So who you are and the successes that you have are made up of thousands of little decisions that happen every single day, one after the other. So when you roll out of bed in the morning, when you're, you know, choosing what you're going to have for breakfast, all of these little micro decisions make you who you are. And the mindset is really what differentiates the people who are millionaires and who are not. So you may have heard the saying, success leaves clues, and it's totally, totally true, because you see it all around you. Self-made millionaires have the same attributes over and over and over again. And they're really the clues to mega success. They are as close as you could get to a recipe for your mind. And there are dozens of these common characteristics. Like when I was preparing this presentation, I started off by making a big list in like a Word document. And then I sent it over to Steve to get his take on it. And it was just a big jumbled list. And then I went about putting them into like a mind map, and kind of broke them down into 13 different areas and other things that we'll talk about. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this, because I really do believe that there's a lot to this stuff. And I'm not the guy that buys into this big guru Tony Robbins preaching, but I do think there's a lot of real stuff behind it all. So a bit about my background. This is me growing up. I grew up in a very much middle class background in New Zealand, grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot of money. We weren't like struggling to get by, but we certainly weren't wealthy or anything. And I was even whiter back then than I am now. So, yeah. It's not a t-shirt.
Wow, that's not a white shirt?
That's my first day of school.
Holy crap.
That's my older sister and me cruising along in the back there.
What the hell are you doing in the top picture there? What are you doing there?
Oh, just eating something.
Oh, okay.
I was quite a fat little baby. Yeah, I was a happy baby. So I've got older sister, younger sister, so I'm a middle child. My mum is a teacher. She teaches 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. A couple of years away from retirement. And my dad is a farmer. So that's kind of my background. And we we grew up about 20 minutes out of a rural community of about 20,000 people. Wellington, nearest city, was about an hour away. And yeah, so that was my background. So I very much had a middle class mindset sort of drilled into me from day one, because that's what all my friends, all my family, all of the town around me had. So my credentials: I'm not a self-help guru. I'm definitely not the author of a top-selling, millionaire mindset book or anything like that. But I am friends with at least 50 multimillionaires, and I've built multiple multi-million-dollar companies myself. And I think, having thought about this and read enough about this kind of thing, I understand and have seen these common traits come up over and over and over again. So I'm going to try to share some personal experiences along the way, but just all of this is just my thoughts. You could probably read something else contradictory elsewhere. A lot of it's going to be common sense, but hopefully as we're going through, you'll just be able to ask yourself consciously, am I doing that or am I not doing that? Is that something I can work on? And maybe this is one of the things that you take away from this event and really work on it. And I think it could have a positive impact. Because again, it's not about it's not just about, you know, being a millionaire. It's more about mega successful, and the money just takes care of itself. So Steve and I have got quite a unique vantage point to all this, because we've had tens of thousands of students come through our programs. We've worked one-on-one with hundreds of people like you throughout Blueprint Academy in the past 5 years, and even before that, we had different forms of one-on-one coaching. So this gives us quite a unique look at the way people think. And what has become just totally apparent and crystal clear is that most people are just constantly swimming against the current. Most people are their own worst enemy because of these built-in beliefs or habits or, you know, characteristics that they have. So 99%, and also, you know, society trains us to go and work for the man. You know, that's what school is all about, and I think it all started with the Industrial Revolution, so that doesn't help either. But certainly, most people are definitely their own worst enemy. Your background doesn't matter. That's the good thing, because it's not some dark art or some cryptic code to become a millionaire. In fact, the recipe is right there in front of you when you analyze and study what other super successful people, other millionaires, have done. It really is just a set of ingredients that build one on top of each other, and they make all the difference. So how many of the ingredients do you have? Try to identify where you're weak and consciously take note and work on the weaknesses. And it's something that you really have to work on over time. And even today, I'm still all the time consciously trying to work on these things. Because some of it doesn't come naturally, but over time it gets easier. So ingredient number one is to understand the math of money. And this one is actually really, really simple. So all the millionaires that I know, they understand this and they get it. The dollar equation is the first part of it. And the dollar equation is like the universal rule for how much money you're going to make. And it's quite simple. It's leads multiplied by your conversion rate, multiplied by dollars per customer, multiplied by the average number of transactions. I mean, we deal with this with online marketing all the time. So hopefully it's quite a simple equation for you. But these four variables are at the base of any business. You know, whether you've got a cafe in Tasmania or whatever you're doing, this is what it comes down to. Some people simplify it to these three things: leads multiplied by conversion rate by lifetime value. It's fine, just as long as you know that lifetime value has got like two parts to it, which can both be impacted independently of one another. So here's an example. You've got 1,000. So let's say you're selling lemonade on the street. You've got 1,000 people coming past. 5%, so 50 of those people are going to stop and buy something. You're going to make $1 per customer, and you're not going to get any repeat business. They're just buying and leaving. So 1 is the average number of lifetime transactions. That gets you 50 bucks. Okay, so that would be your daily income selling lemonade in a lemonade stand, 50 bucks with 1,000 people walking past. Now let's assume that you say, you know, I want to do a bit better here, so you get some signage, you put some big signage out there, you hire your 5-year-old daughter to start selling the lemonade, so you get some sympathy votes, and you up the price to $2. So your conversion rate has improved because you've got that extra signage. You're selling it for $2. So just by doubling 2 of those 4 factors, you've quadrupled the amount of money that you're making by doubling just 2 of the factors, right? So 1,000 visitors coming past, 10% conversion rate instead of 5, $2 instead of 1, still only 1 transaction. Okay, so you now got 200 bucks a day instead of 50.
Plus, you don't have to pay that pesky kid.
Yeah, child labor. What happens if you double all of those things? You actually multiply the income by 16-fold. Because 2,000 people coming past, you know, just doubled all of those original numbers, and you're now making 16 times the money that you're making in the first example. So this is pretty simple stuff, and I think it's ingrained into the way that most, certainly most of the multimillionaires that I know, they think like this. So part 2 is leveraging a compounding effect and making money work for you. So a real key concept here is invest and then spend what's left over. And so over time, the money that you're investing turns into something much, much, much bigger, which has a compounding effect. And actually, the 7-figure cycle business model is great for this as well. The others are as well, but the 7-figure cycle one particularly, because you're turning your money over so many times in the course of a year. Even if you are only turning the inventory around and selling out every month, you're still turning that money around 12 times, each time, you know, taking a 30% difference or whatever. But there's lots of ways that you can do this. So look at, you know, real estate is the most obvious and common one. Stocks, bonds, lots and lots of different options. We had some money in government bonds in Argentina, which I wouldn't really recommend to anyone. But we made a lot of money out of it because we understood, like our money like doubled in like a year because we understood what's going on down there. But look, the best way to learn about these things is just by getting involved and start doing it. Get your hands dirty and you start learning. Part number 3, live within your means. So some millionaires have huge burn rates. Not looking at anyone. But they all live within their means. So it's okay to have a super yacht and a Lamborghini and a Ferrari and all these other things. But you still got to live within your means. So I read a couple of days ago that Johnny Depp is in financial turmoil because he burnt through $1 billion. And his financial advisors kept telling him, you're spending too much money. And now he's suing them because he's financially screwed, but he does have another big movie coming out pretty soon, so I think he's going to be okay. But and really important, living within your means is not about being frugal. Like, being frugal is the worst thing that you could really be. Like that's the best way to kill a millionaire mindset, is to be frugal, and that's something that a lot of people battle with, because when you're living on a middle class salary and you're providing for the family, it's easy to be frugal and save money, but saving is not a scalable strategy. I mean, you're going to max out what you can save. The way to get ahead is by earning more, and being frugal really does, you know, contaminates your mind. Understand assets and liabilities, and I don't mean this from an accountant standpoint. All I mean is an asset is something that puts money into your pocket each month, and a liability is something that takes money out. So if you live in your own house and you're paying a mortgage every month, and every month it's taking $1,000 out of your bank account, then under this that would be a liability. I know it goes against conventional wisdom, but that's the way that millionaires think. So accumulate assets and keep liabilities to a minimum. Then stretch your mind. So think big, and this is something that I work on a lot as well. Just thinking bigger, because it's so easy to, well, it's normal for you to think about what you know. So yeah, I know I can launch 2 Amazon white label products in a year. Okay, let's think a bit bigger. What if I wanted to launch 20? How could I do that? Okay, I'd need some funding. Okay, how could I get the funding? So until you start thinking bigger about these things, none of it's even possible. In 2006, I bought my first property in Buenos Aires. That's me standing on top of all the rubble. It cost $32,000, 28 square meter, 300 square foot apartment. And that was kind of a big deal for me. I started getting interested in property probably about 2004, 2003. I started reading through all of these property books, that, you know, the classics, Robert Kiyosaki, all of his stuff, lots of others. I was going to property seminars, and then finally, I mean, I was just out of university. I didn't have any money. I was pretty poor at that point. But I managed to get money together, and my parents helped me to be able to buy this property. And we stripped it back to the bare bones, rebuilt it again, And we started I lived there for a couple of years, and then we rented it out for probably 6 or 7 years, and I just sold it recently. I think the building is about to explode, so I sold it. I'm serious. There have been cases in Buenos Aires where whole buildings have exploded because of the gas, the gas pipe. So this building is over 100 years old. It's over 100 years old, and that's seriously one of the main reasons I sold it. If it doesn't explode, there's going to be an issue with the gas. They've already stopped. The building is transferring over from being like a gas building, gas cooking, to all electric. So I was like, no, the writing's on the wall. This is not going to end too well. The good thing was I sold it for about 3 times what I purchased it for. So I had a lot of appreciation there. I lived there for a couple of years. That was a pretty amazing place to live. It's not for the faint-hearted, buying property in Argentina. You can make a lot of money buying property there, but you have to first figure out how to get the money in to the country. And when I bought this, it was the old Kirchner socialist government, and they basically just locked down everything. You couldn't do a wire transfer of money into Argentina back then. It was impossible. This was like a family that were incredibly corrupt, and the husband was the president for a term, and then the wife came president for a couple of terms. They're all corrupt. Half of them are in prison now, thankfully. But yeah, so buying that property in Argentina, what I had to do is a bit of a side story. I got the cash in, which I think I had to send, to begin with, I had to send it to like Slovakia or something, and it got to Buenos Aires. I went and picked it up in the office, and it's just like $32,000 in cash, and they told me not to get in a taxi because that office where I was picking up the cash, like people pick cash up there all the time, and it may have been identified as, you know, a place where people come out with lots of cash. So walk out, go in the subway for 15 minutes with the cash in my pocket, into the bank and start handing the cash over, and the seller is looking at the bills. It's all in US dollars because the Argentine peso is a bit complicated, and then they'll reject a $100 bill because it's got a bit of ink on it, or it's a bit crumpled, or it's a bit like moist or something. It's not for the faint-hearted, but anyway. Getting back to the point, this was my first taste for success, and it allowed me to stretch my mind, because then I thought, well, I've done this once, surely I could do it over and over again. So that was a small win. Stepping stone, gave me experience. 2008, a couple of years later, it was about a year and a half later, I bought my first property in New Zealand, and for that one I had a 50% mortgage, so I was finally using other people's money and not just all my own money which I'd been saving. So that was another small win. And then in 2010 I read this book, Think Bigger. This is a New Zealand entrepreneur. He's got like hundreds of jewellery shops. And this book really impacted me because it was one of those times when it really made me consciously think bigger. And so I set the goal of saying, okay, by 2020, I want to own 20 properties outright. So by this, I didn't mean 20 properties where I've got an 80% mortgage on each one, 20 properties that I own outright. So I then started thinking about this more, and I said, well, not all properties are the same price. I want to own 20 properties worth $200,000 each outright. So $4 million is what I would need to get these. So that you can see. And then I was assuming that each property would give $1,000 passive income each month. So I'd be getting $20,000 per month passive income if I had 20 properties worth that. Or in other words, if I owned $4 million worth of property outright. So I got there last year in 2017, and I never could have got there if I hadn't, back whenever it was in 2010, made that goal of 20 properties by 2020. I just wouldn't have thought about it. Maybe I would have had 5 or 6, but I wouldn't have had 20. I wouldn't have had that much money in property. So it all begins with thinking about it. So where to from here? If in 7 years I've got, or 8 years or whatever it is, I've got 20. I mean, in the next 5 years, could I have 40 owned outright, 50? Until you really think about these things, it just sounds crazy. And I would have thought it was crazy back then, if you had told me in like 2006 when I got that first property, that by 2017 I'd have 20 properties, spanning, we've got properties, luxury properties in Manhattan, we've got a whole bunch of them in New Zealand and Argentina. This would have just been crazy, and I wouldn't have thought it was possible. But because I started thinking about it and how can it make it happen, then it became a reality. So it's stretching your mind. So Steve and I have got lofty goals for lots of businesses we're working on. You're going to hear about NetBlaze in a couple of hours' time. NetBlaze is a business which, in a few years' time, if things went well, we could sell it for $50 million. And that's just one of them. So when you go through this process of stretching your mind, it kind of sets a new benchmark. It sets a new, what's possible. It's like one thing I do is I do a lot of swimming. So anytime I set a new personal best, I know that I can do that. I can achieve that now. These days when I'm running around the park, I still feel like when I was 17 years old and I could run 1 kilometre in 3 minutes 30 kind of thing, and I still try to do it. I can't do it anymore, but that's my reality. So when I'm not running that fast, it's frustrating, but I think I can still do it because I've done it in the past. So stretching your mind is about expanding to make a new reality, new possibilities your reality. It's why the first million is the hardest. And it's the same reason why people that are multi-millionaires, they might go bankrupt, but my money would be on them bouncing back because they've been there and they know it's possible. So once you
for hair, by the way, because I used to be able to grow hair on the top of my head, and
well, there are treatments for that. Once you've done it once, it becomes part of your comfort zone. That's the real point here. So keep pushing yourself to stretch your mind, and don't just be crazy about it. Like, don't say, oh yeah, I want to earn, 100 grand a month, and that's it. Like, back your way into it. Everyone here can do that, but you have to back your way into it with a plan. So there's got to be some reality behind it all. Growth orientated. All the millionaires I know intuitively think in terms of growth. It's just dialed into the subconscious at this point. And there's 3 parts to it. There's getting uncomfortable, constant learning, self-improvement, and then confidence and optimism. So getting uncomfortable. Every multi-millionaire or super successful person that I've known and that you guys know has probably failed dozens of times. But it doesn't really affect us. It's just part of the, in fact, it's probably a prerequisite to being super successful or being super wealthy. It's a temporary bump in the road. But, going back to a few slides ago when I said that we've helped tens of thousands of students, sometimes a failure can completely derail people. It's okay if it's derailed you in the past, but just be aware that, if you keep trying, you're going to get something. It's okay to fail. It's like a baby learning to walk, where each failure, they fall down like 1,000 times, but each failure, they're getting a little bit closer to actually finally being able to walk. So for multimillionaires, obstacles are just a non-issue. In fact, they are an opportunity in most cases. So growth happens when you go outside your comfort zone, and discomfort is almost always about fear. And more often than not, it's fear of failure. And it's not even about going outside your comfort zone, it's about expanding your comfort zone to include whatever it is that was previously scary for you. So knowledge is an asset, knowledge is power. It's not a coincidence that a lot of multimillionaires, super successful people you read about are prolific readers, because that's how they get a lot of their knowledge. Find someone who is already where you are and learn from them. This is one of the biggest tips that I can give you, and I mean, you guys already know this because you're part of Blueprint Academy. There's no doubt about it that some people do have an easier path than others, depending on your background, but still, anyone can do this. Is the glass half full or half empty? People that see the glass as being half full, they drive me freaking insane. That's why I hate some of the Facebook groups, not the Blueprint Academy one, but 7 Figure Cycle Facebook group is a good example, because you just get people there who see the glass half empty the whole time. Self-made millionaires are optimists, and they see the glass as half full all the time. You can almost always put a positive spin on something. Negativity breeds negativity. It's a vicious cycle. And positivity breeds positivity. So when you get in that positive flow, sometimes you may have seen this, you get in a good groove and things just start working for you.
I doubt there has ever been a super successful person who is a pessimist.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the one thing that I see universally. Everybody's like this, and it's also a fault too, because entrepreneurs, we tend to always look at the bright side and always look at it with rose-colored glasses, and sometimes that causes us pain and suffering. But I'll take it all day long, because it's the only way to go. Otherwise, you won't succeed.
Yeah, and I think the super successful people, and definitely multi-millionaires, confidence is not an issue. It's never in doubt that success is going to happen. And yeah, you fail, but you get back up off the canvas and you do it again.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
How far is self-confidence from being unrealistic?
You can't be. You can be crazy unrealistic, but it does help, I think, if you're realistic about it. You need to have a plan. That's what it comes down to. So you can say, I want to be doing 100 grand a month, and you can have if you had all the 13 ingredients, then it wouldn't be an issue, because they would all sort of work together to make sure that you got there. So I think that question is going to answer itself. But I'd rather shoot for the moon and come up short than have a really, really low goal.
I don't think it's blind confidence so much as it is confidence in the fact that all things are possible. I think that's I think along with the optimism, the other common trait I see is this confidence that, well, why can't that? Of course that can happen. Of course I can have 20 properties by 20. Whereas other people, and it goes along with the pessimism, would be like, well, that's ridiculous. There's no, and so it's not like blind, misplaced confidence that we're talking about necessarily. So I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, but
just asking because I get this question all the time. How could you ever start a venture like that? You had no clue about what you were doing in the start.
You need to be
confidence that's possible,
and you need to be careful about that as well, because those people don't do it with bad intentions, but people that are kind of trying to bring you down back to reality or tell you that it doesn't work, they're probably trying to protect you because they don't want to see you epically fail, but it doesn't help because it makes you question,
And you need to epically fail every once in a while. Often, actually.
The more chance there is of an epic failure, the more chance there is of like an epic win.
Yeah.
So like with NetBlaze, we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, which just might not turn into anything, but it could turn into a huge win. So,
and by the way, I'm going to explain. We failed at it a couple times in different ways. I'm going to share that with you today. We've talked about it. So.
Ingredient number 4 is to get help. Every single multi-millionaire that I know gets help. No one does it alone. Nothing major, nothing really worth doing is ever really achieved without help. And you can look throughout history, like the Egyptians, the emperors, like tech giants.
To be fair, those were slaves, but
well, it depends who you believe. It depends who you believe. Well, they got help. Get help any way you can. It's still help.
You're absolutely right.
But the tech giants, they didn't build a multi-billion-dollar company slaving away in the garage. They might have done that like for the first year or something, but they didn't take it to multi-million-dollar size. It just doesn't work like that. Top athletes, they all seek help, and there's 2 ways that you can get help: expertise and time. So expertise is obviously getting people who are experts at something to do it. It's also having a partner can help fall into this one, but also all of that helps with time. So if you think about it just from a numbers standpoint, 24 hours in a day, even if you were a machine that only slept for 4 hours and like really quick at eating and stuff, you couldn't even grind out 20 hours a day of work. So it's not much. And this is why multimillionaires all think from day one and just constantly about what they can do to build out a team, to delegate. And sometimes handing something off to someone else takes longer in the short term, but in the long term it's just a no-brainer. So we've got a workforce of about 50 people in our company and our different companies at this point, and that's 400 hours work a day that we get done, regardless of whether we show up to work or not. So that's like 10 times an average week for one person. And imagine if you're doing this part-time and you can only do 15 hours a week and we're getting 400 hours done in a single day, like which business is going to grow faster? And you don't get to that overnight, but that's the beauty of outsourcing, is you can slowly scale up to it. Start with hiring just one person to do one thing and then build on that. All the multimillionaires that I know delegate as much as they can, and they get good at letting go. And letting go is really hard to do sometimes. It's something that I struggle with, but you just have to do it. And systematize. Systematizing is another way that you can save time. So you build good systems that streamline operations. And it's not, we were talking about this with someone yesterday, it's not a coincidence that some of the most successful people have business partners. So a success circle, they say that you become the average of the five people that you spend the most time with. And this is something that I think about a lot as well, because I think it's really, really important. If you, for most people it's their family, but it's also work, partners, and best friends. And if your best buddies are always like pulling you down, and you're at the pub and you're having a beer and they're thinking you're crazy and they're saying it's not going to work, that's just not helping you. And you should think about if you want to spend time with those kind of people. And on the flip side of that is, who can you spend more time with? Like, who do you know that's successful, or at minimum an optimist, not a pessimist, that you can spend some more time with? So either through deliberate decision or just the way things work out, multimillionaires surround themselves with successful people. Positivity breeds positivity. Negativity breeds negativity. Imagine if you were surrounded by naysayers all day. I mean, that would just kill your mindset and you wouldn't be able to get anywhere. So if you don't have millionaire friends, then meet some, join a mastermind. Blueprint Academy can work for that. At bare minimum, surround yourself with optimists. And don't take advice from people who have never achieved anything. Why? They don't have the secret to success. I'm really only influenced by people who have had huge success who are inspirational. And if you haven't had huge success, or you're not inspirational in some way, and being inspiring doesn't mean that you've had to have, there's a million different ways that you can be inspiring, right? It doesn't mean that you've had to have, achieved something out of this world. But multimillionaires are not influenced by people that are, haven't achieved anything. So be the millionaire. This is, without doubt, one of the most important ones of all. And you need to be the person that you want to be before you can become that person. So it starts with the way that you think. So when you begin to think like a millionaire, then you can begin to behave like a millionaire. And when you behave like a millionaire, you start doing the things that a millionaire would do. And then guess what? You start getting the same results as what those people get. And that's what the book Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich is all about. But the way that you think is at the root of everything. And that's why you can't you need to be in a positive mindset and embracing so many of these other things that I'm talking about here.
In corporate, we used to call that...
Hang on a minute.
You got it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's from Steve.
Yeah.
That's Steve's words. In a spin on the old corporate, dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah. Because it just makes you feel different. You know, when I was a programmer, the programmers would show up in, you know, disgusting untucked shirts that had stains on them, and you know, I wore a suit because you know, I wanted to be the boss, and it makes you feel differently. It does. It makes you be perceived differently.
Yep.
And it's fake it till you make it. It's, you know, but that's a truism about, you know, it seems simple, but it's obviously a metaphor for some things that are bigger than just dressing.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really important.
And sometimes if you're not sure how to approach a situation and you're working on this whole mindset thing, something that's really helped me over the years is ask yourself, what would such and such do? Like one of your role models, someone who's where you want to be, what would they do in this situation? And that's quite a good guide for what you need to be doing. And just like what Steve said, being professional absolutely matters. It's not just the way the external world sees you either, it's the way that you begin to see yourself subconsciously. And it's about being the millionaire is about much more than business. It's about who you are as a person. It's about your values, your habits, your health. And by that I mean mental and physical, and your relationships. Most millionaires always search for a win-win situation because they're the kind that are scalable. They're the kind that you can, you know, cash in on the most. Because when you help other people, the more people that you're able to help and the more people that you're able to have an impact on in some way, the wealthier you'll become. It goes back to that math of money that we spoke about right at the very beginning. So just talking about this, about being and more than being the millionaire and more than just business, you know, a common characteristic I see is that most millionaires I know, and it's not for everyone, it's certainly not the case for everyone, but most are fitter than average as well. And being physically fit has loads of benefits because it gives you more energy to tackle tougher challenges. It improves your physical appearance and subconsciously how you see yourself as a result of that. It improves your self-confidence and so much more. And also, this is a side benefit, I think the process of staying fit forces you to do something other than just work the grind every day. So in my case, I do boxing twice a week and I do swimming twice a week. So I'm about 3 hours underwater each week, and that to me is also kind of like a form of meditation almost, because I'm getting as close as I can to thinking about absolutely nothing. I'm counting my strokes, and that's it. And then boxing, I'm just like fucking defending myself. I fought someone the other day and he was way better than me. And I was just defending myself. So anyway, it all helps.
Let's die.
Yeah, seriously.
It puts you in the moment.
Yeah.
You can't think about anything else.
Meditation is not something that I personally do, but it is something that lots and lots and lots of very, very successful people do. And for me, it takes different form for different people, but for me it is really about fitness, downtime, and just disconnecting my mind. And just going back to relationships, like a toxic relationship, as we keep sort of touching on, will absolutely destroy your mindset. So, you know, I've been lucky, but I do believe that you kind of make your own luck. In that, you know, I've got huge support at home. I've always had support from mum and dad about chasing my goals, but, you know, my wife as well. And I think that's a huge, huge help. So being the millionaire starts with the way that you think. That's the big takeaway from this.
You know, that the fitness thing that you talked about, I think the other thing it brings is discipline. Because, I mean, you know how crazy I am about my schedule, and my schedule's all built around, you know, like working out in the mornings. And so, you know, it just...
Don't try to book a call with Steve in the morning.
I guard it with my life.
Yeah.
So it's, but it helps my discipline.
Yeah. And that's, it also helps when you've got, you know, buy-in from your family about that. Because sometimes Carolina is like, I hope she doesn't watch this. It's like, oh, but you know, you don't have to go and work out today. You've already done it 3 times this week. And I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to do it. It keeps me sane, apart from anything else in the household as well. But yeah, you really have to be strict and disciplined about that stuff. Solution orientated. Millionaires know that solutions are valuable and think in terms of solutions and not problems. So common obstacles faced by the masses are also sometimes the biggest opportunities. And that's exactly what we're going after with NetBlaze as an example. So find them and think about how you can solve them. Protect your time. Multimillionaires understand the value of their time. Outside of like the way you think, the way you approach your time is probably one of the most important things here. You have to say no more times than you say yes. The more successful you come, the more money that you get, more and more people are going to start wanting things from you, asking you for things, asking you for help, asking you for money, asking you for everything. And at some point you can't help everyone. You have to say no. Time is not a renewable resource either. Money goes up, money goes down, but time's always just going down, so you better frickin' make the most of it. What I've seen in multimillionaires is that they are able to focus with tunnel vision. Focus on one thing, be extremely efficient about getting it done. They're not afraid to tackle a big task first thing in the morning or whenever. And procrastination is just a non-issue because we know that there's no time to waste. Time is ticking down. Also, just being engaged with what you're working on. Sometimes I'm in a meeting with someone and I feel like they're half there and they're half somewhere else. But that's just a waste because you either have to be all in on one thing or just don't even bother. I think one of the curse of the entrepreneur as well is that you're always going to have more ideas that you can possibly do, that you can possibly, you know, take action on. We've got so many ideas, or we've had so many ideas, but we've only been able to do a tiny fraction of them. But you need to say no to some of them, and just eradicate distractions. You know, talking about time as well, I think it's one of the reasons why if you're ever reading about the habits of highly successful people, certainly multimillionaires, most of them don't spend their Tuesday, you know, evenings watching the Kardashians or any other crappy TV show that's going around. And if they do watch TV, it's more to discharge than anything else. Like, I'm amazed at how much time some of my friends and family spend watching TV. It's just such a waste. So when I was, I guess I was probably about, I don't know, I might have been about 20 at the time. I was walking in Auckland, and again, you got to remember that Auckland and New Zealand in general is like a big middle-class society. It's not like walking through London or you know, Manhattan, where a Lamborghini is a dime a dozen. Okay, and I don't know if you can do it in the UK or the United States, but in New Zealand we can personalise our license plates. So you can put a word on it instead of just having all the numbers. So I see this amazing brand new Lamborghini Spider, it was, and the number plate, the license plate, just said now, and I got a bit closer and I had a look at it, and in the fine print above that it said the power of, and that really stuck with me, the power of now. This is someone who is, I don't know what the guy did, but he was certainly probably a high achiever. He's probably the only Lamborghini owner in middle class Auckland, New Zealand. But that really stuck with me, and it resonated with me because to get things done, you need to take major action. Anytime I have an idea, I want it done yesterday. So I'll send an email off to one of the team and I'll be like, come on guys, we have to do this today. It has to happen now.
Which they love, by the way.
Yeah, Majid loves it. And waiting around just drives me insane. It drives me absolutely insane. I want immediate and fast action, and I think that's a common trait as well amongst people who have achieved either extraordinary things or have just built hugely profitable businesses. Action orientated. Money likes speed. And this also relates to if your money is just sitting there, it's not working for you. So money likes to be on the move. And the faster you can get actions moving, the more money you're going to make. So money needs to be working for you in order for you to get the full leverage out of it. And we spoke about this at the very beginning. A huge issue that I see in all the different students, beyond Blueprint Academy, just in the tens of thousands of people that we've seen, is a lack of action and over planning. Planning is easy because it makes you feel like you're getting something done. But planning is not really the rubber hitting the road and moving forward. It's just sitting there building a plan. And sitting there building a plan without action is not going to make you a single dollar, unless you could like sell that plan or something. But millionaires don't overplan. They spend far more time doing and far less time planning. So anything worthwhile also requires consistent daily effort. And I think it is important to definitely have a forecast and a budget, and you need to plan these things out. They're certainly one of the ingredients to having a successful business, but you don't want to just spend all your time doing it and it's an excuse because you're telling yourself that you're working, because you're not. It's easier to be action orientated when you're doing something that you love because it comes naturally to you. And also when you're doing something that you love, it's not as much of a grind. So you can get through the tough times. But focus on taking action and actually doing, not planning. Think in terms of abundance. This is a big one. All millionaires I know think in terms of abundance and not scarcity or frugality. There's plenty of money to go around. There's plenty of business to be had. One of the questions I get from my friends and family when I say that we teach this stuff is they're like, oh my God, but you're giving away like secrets. Aren't you worried that such and such? And I'm like, there's like hundreds of millions of people out there that could buy my products. You know, it's not going to affect me. But it's a common way that people think. You know, 99% of people think in that way. And frugal thinking is like a handbrake on your bank balance. Like I said at the start, like saving is not scalable. You can't become a multi-millionaire you could become successful without just, by being frugal and saving, but you can't become a multi-millionaire by saving. All of the multimillionaires and super successful business owners that I know are not afraid of competition. In fact, we embrace it. Normally, if there's big competition, it's because there's big business to be had. And hopefully you can use the marketing skills that you build up to tackle that competition head on. Generosity pays off in dividends, and if you don't really believe this, you should try it for a week. Like, donate to a good cause, give a better tip at the restaurant. Try being generous for a week and just see what happens. It seems to, I'm not like I kind of believe in karma, that do something good for someone and it comes back to you, and I don't really know how it works. But I find that with generosity, that is what happens. And even if your mother-in-law or your grandma tells you that money is evil, money is not actually evil. Money can do a lot of good.
Your mother-in-law's evil.
Yeah, my mother-in-law's evil, right? So this whole attitude of abundance is also about, it's all interconnected with positivity, optimism. And then vision. And vision isn't just about visualization. And I'm not a guy that sits down and visualizes things. I don't actively do it. Although I do think that there's some benefit in doing that because it makes your visions much more clearer in your mind. It makes it clear what you want to achieve. So having vision to me is about knowing what you want and being able to imagine it, to think about it consciously and subconsciously on an ongoing basis. You can't think about it subconsciously until you start thinking about it consciously. So you need to bring your dreams into your conscious thoughts. So it's good to sit down and think about, what you would like to achieve one day, other than the money. One way that you can do it is with a dream board. And I haven't made one of these. That was the last one I made way back in 2008. But a dream board is where you get a bunch of photos of things that you want to have, and you put them somewhere where you're going to see it all